presentations, item number 6, which we have is a pulled item, and it is also a presentation. And I believe the only presentation today, which is a request to carry over funding from fiscal year 2022-23 to fiscal year 2023-24, amend the fiscal year 2023-24 budget, other capital improvement plan, project ordinances, and internal service funds spending plans, and we will turn this over to Ms. Christina Reardon.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Christina Reardon, Budget and Management Services. And I am back today with you to follow up on our carryover item that we discussed at the last City Council work session. Just to recap where we are, so at the last City Council work session on September 21st, staff presented our carryover recommendation, which included a bonus recommendation for all full and part-time staff. At that work session, council discussed the recommendation and then directed the administration to develop 3 additional bonus proposals. So I will be presenting those today to you, but just some of the parameters that staff were using when we were developing those proposals, I just wanted to go over them. So the first was that bonuses included all full and part-time staff members, that we use area median income to tier the bonus amounts, that we would make sure that the lowest paid employees received the highest bonuses, that the lowest bonus amount was equal to $500, and that the highest bonus amount would be close to or equal to $5,000, that part-time staff would receive a bonus of $1,000, which was part of the initial recommendation, and that the total cost of the bonuses would not exceed $6.5 million across all funds in the city. So I will be going over the bonus options with you today, but I wanted to just remind you of a few things before we get started. So we'll be discussing the 3 options, and as you are aware, in order to approve the bonuses, you will have to do a budget amendment, and that requires a budget ordinance amendment. And I just wanted to make you aware that in your packet today, I have provided budget ordinance amendments for all 3 of the options, as well as the city manager's option, which was in the original proposal that we presented at the 21st. If, after today's discussion, council is ready to make a decision, staff can bring the selected ordinance to the council meeting on October 16th for your approval. So this is just a reminder of the recommendation that you saw at the last work session. This was the city manager's recommendation, which had 3 tiers and included all full and part-time employees. There was a bonus for part-time employees of $1,000, and the cost in the general fund was $4.8 million, and the total cost overall was about $6.5 million. I wanted to just spend a little bit of time talking about area median income. And so just to provide some context for the options that you're going to be seeing. So as you may remember from math class, the median is the middle of a list, of numbers. And so area median income is the household income for the middle households in a given region. And the Department of Housing and Urban Development calculates AMI for every area in the country. And these estimates are used to calculate various income levels, which are then defined as percentages of median family income, and they vary by the number of people in a household. So since we don't know the household number of every employee that we're going to be doing these options on, we have chosen 1 person as the household. So just when you're looking at these, that is the household number that we're using for these AMI numbers. And so that gives you 5 tiers of AMI that you'll be looking at today. The first is 60% AMI, which is $42,480. 80% AMI, which is $56,650. 100% AMI, which is $70,810. 120% AMI, which is $84,970. And 150% AMI, which is $106,210. And these are the most recent numbers from the spring of 2023. So these are the three options that we have for council to discuss. As you kind of look at the options, you'll see that the first row in each of the options are those AMI numbers, and then the second row are the corresponding salary amounts. So you have 5 tiers of AMI, which leads to 6 groups of employees, and then there's a part-time group as well, too. So all the options that you see today spread out the bonuses from the highest being $5,000 to the lowest being $500. And we've tried to provide you with options that have some different distinctions and then also some different results. So option 1 has the largest distinction among the ranges of employees. It has the largest number of employees receiving $5,000, but it also has the largest number of employees receiving $500. And then some employees will be receiving $3,500. This option does not provide for a $1,000 bonus for part-time employees, and that was partly because of the large number of full-time staff that would be receiving a $500 bonus. In order to reduce the disparity that might exist in some departments, we have presented an option that preserves $500 for part-time staff in this option. And the second option is option 2. And in this option, we have one group receiving $5,000. And then, and that's the first group, which is the under 60% AMI. And that's the only group that receives $5,000 in this option 2. This option reduces the number of employees that receive $500 as well, too. So you have 2 groups of employees that will receive $500 as opposed to 3 in the first option. It does increase the number of employees. It also reduces the number of, or the option amount in the tier below the 500, so that 100% to 120% is increased from 500 to 2,750, and it reduces the group that's 80% to 100% from 3,500 to 2,750. And then, of course, the option that is 60% to 80% is reduced from 5,000 to 4,000. And I should say that all of these options, you can see the total cost is under that $6.5 million. So option 3, this option, like option 1, has one group, the 60% AMI, that receives the $5,000, and it only has one group that receives the $500 bonus. So this kind of spreads out the bonus the most. Part-time receive $1,000 in this bonus, in this option. And for this option, the spread among the groups is less dramatic, which means you might have less distinction among employees in different departments. And I think this is kind of important to point out when you're making a decision, because employees sometimes are in the same position, but might be in different groups in these bonus options. So you could have someone who is in the same position in one department, but be in, one could be at 60% and one could be at 80%. And so an example of that might be, you could have the fire department, where you might have an option where you would have a firefighter, especially in the first option, who might receive a $5,000 bonus, and then a fire driver who might be in that higher option would receive a $500 bonus. So this option 3 tries to reduce some of that. So this next slide is just something that we had heard at the council meetings, and there was some discussion about a bonus for individuals who earn under $75,000. This option was not considered, or I shouldn't say option, I said this particular scenario was not considered as an option because it cost more than the $6.5 million. This option would cost about $8.3 million across funds, but we did want to provide it to you just so you would have it as a reference, and we could give it to you for more information. I do have a slide with all 3 options on it so that you can kind of see that, and we can use it as a point of discussion. But before we do that, I just wanted to move on to what we think are probably the ideal next steps. So I know that I'll leave time for some questions and discussion, but I think the ideal would be if City Council selects a bonus option today, it could be adopted as part of the carryover item on the 10/16 City Council meeting. And if City Council was to approve that option on 10/16, employees could receive the bonus on November 3rd, in their November 3rd paycheck. And I just wanted to kind of, as a reminder, remind you that on the agenda today, we have the class and compensation study, and that will be taking place ideally starting in October, and then the results will be available for the FY25 budget process. So that is the information I have for you today. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. We do have some speakers here that we will call at this particular time. We have several on the internet as well. You each will be given 3 minutes apiece. We have Mr. James Chavis, Mr. Brian Graves, Ms. Christina Servat, Jacqueline Wagstaff are the persons that I have signed up here to speak in person, and then we have 3 speakers. On the internet, Ms. Messer, thank you, Ms. Lori Messer, Ms. Annette Hoffer, and we have Ms. Severt, but I think Severt is actually here in person. All right, we'll take them in that order.
All right, I'm James Chavis, a resident of Durham, and I've just seen this and just got a whip of it. I don't know how long y'all have seen it and how long y'all got a whip of it. So this is how the city works. Community folks don't have no voices because it's just been proven, and dates are already been given to accept this and approve this, but we citizens that's here today seen it. But what about other citizens of Durham who have not seen it or had an opportunity to express themselves? This is what we've been talking about. Y'all claiming y'all not doing stuff under the table behind us, but how do we know unless we hear to see that this can be voted on today or sent by the 16th and given out by the 3rd? I know people want their money. I'm not denying y'all the opportunity. But what I want you to understand, this not only goes for this goes for everything the city of Durham do to the citizens of Durham. We do not have a voice. Tell us to come up here and speak, but the decision has already been made by staff and given to them so they can approve it. And that's should be not working. One man said last night that everything that comes before y'all, it should have been coming before the citizens first, and let us have a voice so that when it comes back to y'all, y'all can understand where we coming from. But when you continue to do it like this, we don't have no voice. You all just telling us to accept what y'all want us to accept and let y'all do what y'all want to do. This is a bunch of mess. And I'm telling you for yourself, Why are you gonna give 85 to 106 and more, $2,000 or more, when you, a bonus, when you won't even pay these less folks that in their regular pay? So what kind of mess is that? Giving them more money and then gonna give them a raise on top of that? Think about that. Think about how y'all taking and wasting taxpayer money to give. This is not fair. And this should not be accepted until it comes out into the community and let people of the community have a very voice of this. Thank you.
Mr. Graves, Ms. Levert, and Ms. Wagstaff.
Thank you, everyone, for having me, allowing me to speak. With the fire department, I'm one of the fire investigators, tenure here since 2017. I just want to speak very briefly on some of the concerns of pay, comp, and class, and want to give some approximate numbers. The approximate employees of the City of Durham Fire Department is approximately 450 people. And in that 450 people, there's a union that represents approximately a little over 200. And the union has had a voice before the council and is doing phenomenal work on pay. However, there's a silent majority that I represent, and I'm not in the union, I'm not a union member, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the union, I'm speaking on behalf of members that have been, not always have a voice, not stand up here before the council and speak. There's a proposal that was sent by the union that in these three options, as was noted, does offer disparity amongst tiers of pay and tiers of people within the department. So I want to make sure that as we move forward, as we look at this pay, look at this comp and class, that we understand there are approximately 250, we look at the numbers, people that are not represented by the union. That if we go with some of the proposals that have been given, I know there was one that was emailed out that was not favorable by all union members, that looked at a lower tier that would cause, as was, the example was given, a firefighter would achieve more than a driver, for example. And one of the things that we have been fighting for all is to have an equal share. And I'm saying before the council, if we do a pay option that will cause that level of it will decimate morale when you have some lower tiers and some others that would be slighted based on a bonus program if it's so agreed to. So I say that we need to look at it in the most fairest manner possible because everyone deserves a fair shake. Everyone deserves to be compensated. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of various needs for compensation that need to be addressed by this council. And I'm not here to diminish that or to say that it's not important. But one thing that drives people to leave any employer is morale. And if we make a decision that will further decimate morale, you can't pay people enough to stay. Thank you.
Good afternoon again, Madam Mayor, council people. I have one question right now I want to ask, and maybe the attorney or the deputy manager can answer. Are city council members considered part-time staff, and if so, would they receive a bonus from that $36,000 that y'all now receive after you got your $10,000 raise? Would like to know that to see which one of these options you would actually support if this is true. And I know Mr. Williams always liked to correct things and make it plain, so you probably know and could answer that. I'm just one of those people that believe that the way this is going, I don't have much hope. I'm hoping that they will give you what you need to make you whole, but I don't see it with this crew. I really don't. And I'm a firm believer that if you keep banging your head against the wall and getting the same results, why are you coming down here? I think the results that you're going to get, they're going to give you some dissertations and some long speeches after everybody speak, and it's going to sound good. It's really going to sound good because, you know, two of them one trying to be the mayor, one trying to return her seat. She told you if you help her get reelected, she'll be the fourth vote. Well, she had an opportunity to be the fourth vote in July and 3 other times. So remember that. Don't forget this. And even if they give you one of these options, don't forget, these are the same people that have not made you whole and had the opportunity to do it multiple times. And this election should not be the perimeter of whether or not they get reelected. It should be just what it is. Get your money and vote them out.
Ms. Christina Savert, please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name.
No worries, it's Christina Sievert. And I just wanted to say that what I'm about to say is out of respect for Durham. I'm going to be moving here sometime next year. I'm living in Cary right now. It's nice to see you, the mayor, especially in person. But anyway, my name is Christina, and I'm a member of Socialist Alternative and Workers Strike Back. I'm here to support Durham sanitation workers today, whose victory of any kind inspires the entire working class. You've shown courage by taking action when those in power ignored you. Our local politicians focus on bureaucratic nonsense, like, average medium income. What does that have to do with cost of living nowadays? They're not tied. They could talk about average medium income, as they've sort of demonstrated. They can kind of pay people what they want now, can't they? They refuse to pay a fair wage. They've hired scabs and contractors who wouldn't work under the conditions and pay that you would for long term either. They left you no choice but to strike. I know that decision wasn't easy and many couldn't participate due to the financial hardship, but your actions have won bonuses for sanitation and other city workers. Labor laws here are unjust, some of the worst in the country if you look it up. Breaking them is a powerful tradition. For those who say, oh, it is legal, well, I'd like to comment that those laws were created in the Jim Crow era and are, fundamentally racist and inequitable to begin with. So let's not use those laws as our starting point. So yeah, we can't wait for politicians to act. Workers Strike Back fights for a $25 minimum wage nationally and more. We're just all very inspired by you, and for anyone who's interested in labor struggles such as these, you could check out On Strike. It's a YouTube channel, and we talk about fights like yours going on throughout the country right now, like KCBG for Amazon. There's a bunch of hospital workers, 75,000 of them, on strike in different parts of the country, and you're doing what you need to do to set a precedent for fair pay. They're talking over here about commerce in the city and how much wealth and money it creates, and yet, they were just talking about that. You need people to come and clean up that trash. Well, pay people to do it. Y'all deserve to live in this city that you serve, and, we could talk about medium income all day, all we want, but y'all need to be paid enough to live here. So thank you all for all the courage, and there's people like me that look up to you, even if there's others that look down on you just for the very work you do, and I always admire that you do your jobs with pride, and just thank you all.
I believe the names that I called out from the internet speakers are resource persons. Do we have any other speakers out there on the internet? Okay, I'll bring Ms. Reardon back up for any questions the council may have at this time. Looking to my left. Looking to my right. Councilwoman Javier.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good to see you. Just really quick, in the memo for the part-time workers, option 3 listed 500, but in the PowerPoint slide it listed 1,000, so I was confused.
It should be 1,000.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
So that may be
That's what
just
you
a
said,
mistake
but I
by
just
not-
wanted to make sure that.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
No, the
thank you.
calculation is 4,000 for option 3. It's only option 1 where it's 500, so that may be a mistake in the memo, which
Okay,
we can
I
correct.
appreciate that. Great. Madam Mayor, I have one other question, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Christina, we could suspend rules today, correct, since we have the ordinance language, or we cannot? We have to wait till October?
I mean, I believe that it's council's decision whether you suspend the rules or not, but yes, as far as having an ordinance to vote on, you do have that in your packet.
Thank you.
The clerk has indicated there are 2 speakers, so I'm just letting them know that we will come back to you after the questions from Councilwoman Caballero. Did you?
Madam Mayor, that's all. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We have a Mr. George Baker, and we also have, I believe, one person on the internet, Mr. Hughes. We'll take our speaker here first. And if there's anybody else, please sign up at this particular time. Last call for speakers in the audience or on the internet. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So I'm not a public speaker, but I want to say it because nobody don't want to say it. But you asked a question about $5,000 and how we came up with that. We came up with that because we feel that it's reasonable to get us out of our circumstances, our financial binds. Like, the truth of the matter is, what you guys don't know, it's a handful of workers in my department that are homeless, that's living in hotels with their wife and their children. Now, at the same time, you know, it might be an honorable thing to work for the city. You know, when people around the city, they see us and they say, you know, you work for the city, you got a good job. But that's not the case, you know, because we don't make good money, you know. So I just want y'all to know, like, if you a man, you know, how would you feel if your wife and your children, you know, living in a hotel and you got to go back to them and, you know, they know you work for the city, but this is all you could do, you know, and they don't want to come up here and say anything, so I got to speak for them. Imagine y'all women in hotels and, you know, your husband worked for the city. Again, you know, you got to look at her every day, and you got to look at them children every day. So I just want y'all to know that those are the facts. And that's all I got to say.
Mr. Hughes, if you're on the internet, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. And I just want to start off by commending the gentleman who just spoke for his courage and his transparency. And I want to say it is the greatest shame that this city has workers who cannot afford to live in our city and who are unhoused and have to resort to living in hotels or in cars. And we should be ashamed of ourselves, and you all should be ashamed of yourselves as elected officials to have an environment where that is the case. And instead of asking the workers, how did they come up with the $5,000 bonus and what was the methodology, I want to turn the question on you, members of the council. What was the methodology behind the $6.5 million cap that you say you aren't willing to go above, other than Jillian Johnson arbitrarily throwing that number out at the last work session? That's the real question that we need answered. And I hope one of the council members can answer that question for us today. I don't normally like to criticize the city manager's office or city staff, but as somebody who's worked in city government for a number of years and was responsible for presenting budget and other recommendations to leadership and legislators for approval, it really was disingenuous and inadequate for the manager's office at the previous work session to not come to the table with an evaluation of the option that was requested by the workers, which was $5,000 for all employees making $75,000 and under. Even if that option was not feasible financially, which we know it is, they still should have presented that option and the pros and cons so that the members of the council can make a decision as to whether that is something that they want to approve. And to have that option again not presented with a budget amendment, I think is a disservice to the workers who have requested time and time again for you all to evaluate what it would mean to offer $5,000 bonuses to all employees making $75,000 or less. I'll just end by saying that Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated for doing what? How many of y'all know in the room? For standing with sanitation workers. And here we are in 2023, where we have workers who are pleading, who are putting their lives on the line in one of the most dangerous jobs, asking for the bare minimum, and you all can't seem to find the courage to do that. Shame on you, members of the council. And voters, I hope that you show up in this election and vote those out who don't stand by our city workers. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Montreal Perry.
Hey, City Council, how y'all doing? I ain't gonna be up here long. I just want to point out a fact, as far as sanitation workers go. I don't know about other departments in the city, but we are the lowest paid municipality, one of the lowest paid municipalities in North Carolina. So Durham in sanitation start out pay is $39,141. Burleson starts out at $40,500. Greensboro starts out at $43,000. Greenville, $41,000. Raleigh, $41,117. Rocky Mount, $40,516. And Charlotte at $45,760. And I was just trying to figure out, how is this possible? And back to the reference of how we came up with the 5,000, we was really trying to be conservative. We really wanted to ask for 75, but we wanted to just be like, okay. In my mind, I was like, we asked for 75, they're gonna give us 5. We asked for 5, they're gonna give us 2 or 3, So, so we was just like, we ain't gonna be too greedy. They just passed the budget. We still trying to be modest throughout the whole situation, even though we being overworked and underpaid, still trying to be modest. So I just want y'all to keep that in mind, and I just wanted to drop those numbers on y'all. And y'all make the best decision that y'all can.
Clerk Schreiber, did you say there's one additional speaker online?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Toby Lippin.
Yes, ma'am. Sir?
Hello, my
Ma'am.
name is Lippin, and I have been following this closely as a longtime labor supporter and supporter of our city workers, who I think do a fabulous job, especially learning more during this about how understaffed so many departments are. As the council considers this, I really appreciate that Councilman Johnson came up with this, Councilperson Johnson came up with this proposal, since the city manager just couldn't figure it out. To me, it was like a math word problem you get in school and kind of have to figure out. But the median income in this area, which includes Durham and Chapel Hill, is now $116,200. And the city manager and her team and the budget director picked one-person households. And I would guess that relatively few of the city workers, if you were going to do a spread, are in one-person households. And so I think to base the whole decision on the lowest level versus like a 3 or 4 person household, which is about where the actual median family income comes in. So it's kind of an arbitrary number, and I'm concerned that the city manager has been resistant to this whole issue all the way along, and I feel like that bias is coming into this. So I encourage the council in your decision making, if you're going to stay within the budget, to pick the option presented that is the most generous to workers. In my looking at it, there should be like a 2.5 compromise in between option 2 and 5. And so, I mean, 2 and 3. So I just think being the most generous, given that our city is growing and prosperous, et cetera, I think other people, like the worker who spoke before me, have, I don't need to repeat what they've said. They've already said it more eloquently than I could. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn it back over to council for any additional questions. Councilwoman Freeman, followed by Councilwoman Jose Hyman. And did I see your hand go up, Mayor Pro Tem?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you. I just had a few questions for staff. Can you say how many employees are in each of these breakouts of AMI?
Yeah. Do you want to know how? So there's a, in the under 60% AMI, there's 120 employees. In the 60 to 80% AMI, there's 688 employees. 80 to 100% is 508 employees. 100 to 120% is 434. 120 to 150 is 316 employees, and above 150% is 191.
Can you repeat those again?
Sure, the first, under 60 was 120. 60 to 80 is 688 employees. 80 to 100% is 508. 100 to 120 is 434. 120 to 150 is 316. And above 150 is 191.
And can you say the part-time number as well?
273.
273? And then I would like to know, I think specifically that I'm trying to figure out how to get all of these numbers up to 5,000, up to 106, and just understanding, like, I'm looking at the breakdown across the organization. I think that an additional 2 to 3 million might make the difference, and I think we could probably get there. I will say that I think it's important that we do move one of these options forward today, but I do think that it would be good to have council consider whether or not we want to do something about making all of those bonuses a little bit larger, depending on which one of these options we select. I think I appreciate the comments that have been made too. I will say that it's not lost on me that there's differences in departments and differences in sizes in all of the funds. I think I went around a few rounds with the city manager on just how to make this happen, and I'm still pushing for this to happen. And I know she's not here today, but I know that our Deputy City Manager Johnson is definitely capable of taking the reins on moving that forward if the council decided that. And I just want to note for my council colleagues that option 1, because of the part-time workers being at 500 and those budget ordinances being written the way they are already, I would like to just go ahead and remove option 1 out of the way and just focus on option 2 or 3. I'm open to either one.
Councilwoman Jose Hyman.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'd like to hear some more from staff to see what option they feel is hitting them in terms of what, because I know everybody has a different approach and opinion, but definitely what Mr. Chavis said, like really hearing from the workers in terms of which one that they felt would like to go with. But also, I know that we did not have anything laid out for the $5,000 bonus for up to $75,000, and would like to see if we could have some, just like you did a chart for the other stuff, just, even though I know it goes over the perceived budget that you said, the 6.5 million, but just kind of looking at that and seeing, you know, where we might be able to get some of that money if we could, to make it to make it for the $5,000 bonus up to $75,000. Like, we don't have the data in that, and I know it's over the budget, but could you give us some of that data in thinking where we might be able to pull to be able to make up that extra money? I mean, I don't know if you can do that. I know it wasn't here. I know obviously it's over the budget, so I guess I'm asking, is there any way to then go back and kind of give us this outline just to see where else we might not be able to pull it, we might not be able to do that, but just to be able to look at some other options to see, could we do that? Could we take it from other places? I don't know. I'm not a budget person in terms of you. I have done budgets, but, so that's, I guess, because everybody's looking at me like I'm a little, like, I don't know, like, maybe I'm not saying it right?
Yeah, so this option, or not option, but the numbers that you see in front of us assume the $300 that is already budgeted for staff above $75,000, and then the new additional money. Right, you don't have an ordinance for that. You have the amount it would cost for the general fund and the total funds, but you do not have an ordinance for it. Cross funds. Is that what you're asking? I'm not sure if I answered your question, but.
I think for me also too, and I don't even know if I should say this, but I think when we look at the amount of workers that are in sanitation and other places, like, it's an equitable issue for me, because I also like to know, like, the ethic makeup of, like, how many workers that are in sanitation and are African American, whatever, because we are still facing, like, when he gets up here and he talks about the fact that we have city workers in sanitation living in hotels, right? And then I've also said in my one-on-one with the city manager, I personally feel, and I understand people do different jobs, there is such a range in terms of the lower staff and that higher staff in management. It's ridiculous. I don't even, it's the range of salary is crazy. Because we have some administrative, everybody does their job, but we have some administrative just secretaries that are making in the $60,000 and $70,000. So I don't know how that happened. I wasn't on council then. I wasn't setting up salaries. But to me, being somebody who has been in administration, being somebody who has sat on university budgetary stuff, the range to me in terms of the gap is too wide. So when you look at most of the sanitary workers, and you're looking at these men, most of them are, I don't know what the data is in terms of ethics, but most of them are what? Young men of color, older men of color, right? That's just very disheartening to me.
Any other comments from council? Councilwoman Caballero.
I just wanted to say I appreciated Councilmember Freeman's comment, and in particular because the part-time workers, which we know many of our part-time workers are women of color. They don't get health insurance. They don't get the pension plan that's offered for other folks, and so I'm not comfortable. It was one of my asks is to keep that at $1,000. I thought it was really important to do that. So I am open to either option 2 or 3, and just wanting to hear what others have to say.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think option 2 to me seems like the best option. My second choice would be option 1. I don't love option 3. I think option 2 gets closest to my vision of a reasonable distribution, and of course keeps those part-time folks at $1,000. To the question of whether city council members would receive the bonus, I believe that we would, but I would be perfectly willing to exempt city council members from the ordinance so that we would not receive a bonus. If that is something that other folks, if that's something that would be a problem for the community, I'm perfectly happy to forego that $1,000. I also wanted just a couple comments in general about our living wage policy. So, our minimum livable wage at the city is just over $18 an hour. And we live in a state where the minimum wage is still $7.50. So I don't want to say that the city is, that we don't need to pay more. We do need to pay more, and that's why we're doing a pay study, is to figure out exactly how much more we need to pay. But we are paying 2.5 times the minimum wage at a minimum. And our minimum livable wage is also based on cost of living. It's based on how much rents are for housing. So our minimum livable wage is going to go up as housing costs go up. I'm not saying that it's enough, but it is based on it is based on a real number that we hope illustrates the cost to people in our community, living in our community, and will continue to go up as the cost of living in our community goes up. With regard to the AMI and, for single-person households, the AMI was really just to determine where we made the cutoffs. If we'd used a different number, we would have just used bigger numbers and cut it off at roughly the same places. So that shouldn't, I hope that doesn't concern people with regard to the staff using the AMI for one person as the way to just like make the cutoffs happen between, for example, in option 1, who gets 5 and who gets 3,500. We still have the same amount of money that we need to spread out. And we would just, those AMI numbers, those percentages would be different, those numbers, but the cutoffs would have to be roughly the same in order to spread the money out in what we hope is a fair way. Yeah, I would also love to vote on this today and move this process along so folks can get this money as soon as possible. Another thing that I want to just flag for people, the schools recently had an issue with bonuses, with folks not expecting the taxes that came out of their bonuses. And so I want to make sure that we communicate clearly with employees about what the taxes will be on your bonus, because nobody is going to get a full 5 or 4 or 2750 or whatever. That bonus is going to be taxed. There's a couple different ways that the city can tax it, and we can make sure that the finance department communicates clearly with y'all about what that's going to look like, because the school district has recently had a lot of confusion with folks around how much got taken out of paychecks, and I don't want us to have that problem. So just FYI, your bonus will be taxed. How much it's taxed might depend on things like your exemptions, right, and your salary, or it might be taxed at a flat rate, and the finance department can tell us which is going to happen. But please don't expect $5,000 net to come through your paycheck if you're in this lowest category. That's not going to happen. So just to reiterate on the options, my first choice is option 1. Sorry, my first choice is option 2. Second is option 1. And third choice would be option 3. Thank you.
Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate all the comments made today. However, I think what's really driving my decision here is I'm informed by the voices that I've heard in the room, as well as the voices that I've heard in the community at large. And this is tough work. And the reason why we're basing this on logic, on numbers here, is because we have to have some common basis that is somehow impacting everyone. There is no way in the world we can make decisions based on individualized circumstances or situations. In that case, we would be trying to make a decision off of 2,600 stories. So for me, I remember making my last comments. I was talking about reweighting the equity lens on this, and so I was leaning toward initially option 2, but also as I keep talking about this, a loaf of bread. The loaf of bread costs the same in the grocery store, no matter who buys it, but it does impact individuals differently, whether you make a lot of money or not so much money. That is what started having me lean toward option 2. And I think that this is, it does provide more of an equitable approach to it. We are hearing folks in the room, and sometimes we hear from the same people that go from being a expert, fire advocate to affordable housing advocate to a now solid waste or sanitation worker advocate. And I think advocacy is important, and I appreciate those voices. However, we have to be able to make these decisions based on the information that's provided to us in order to be fair to everyone. I'm leaning toward option 2. I do, and if no one else will, I will call that motion for us to make an action today so that we can get this as soon as possible. There was a comment made earlier about what our city employees are getting paid versus other municipalities. Well, that is why we have the pay study coming. And if we were not, if we didn't have that pay study coming in December or starting whenever it is starting, then I may be in a different place. But the pay study allows us to take a snapshot of where the market is at that moment. And that will look at all of those municipalities, and it will allow us to have information to get everyone's pay where it is. Now, I don't foresee us, if the value of a position across the market is down, I don't see us taking anybody's pay and dropping it. But if the value of a position in the market is up, then of course we're going to increase that. I think with the information presented to us, we're making the best decisions that we possibly can. And to the comment earlier about the 6.5 being arbitrary, it's far from arbitrary. We have, very accomplished and very well-trained city staff that have put this information together for us. And 6.5 was that threshold to keep us from getting to a point of starting to impact the city in a harmful way financially. So I think, I think that the conversations we're not hearing as, the folks on the other end of the spectrum and how they are going to be feeling, and I think we do have to make those tough decisions sometimes where, you make more money, but sometimes money's not that actual currency that matters to folks. So morale is something we have to consider, and I can appreciate that as well. So I do know that there are some folks that have been coming in here talking about these issues that are not going to get what they initially thought they were going to get. And what's happening is your advocacy has helped inform us on making a decision potentially that will have your brother or sister in work get a little more than you maybe. But that's what equity is all about. So it's getting folks what they need where they are. So that's the reality of what we're presented with. I cannot make a decision on anyone's individual circumstance based on just them telling me, because I don't have anything to scientifically base that on. So I'm going to go with making the best decision based on the information provided that impacts everybody across the city. So I am going to lean toward option 2, and I'll yield for more comments. And if not, then I don't mind making that motion to suspend the rules and vote today.
Anyone else have any other comments? I'm going to try to make a few brief comments. At least I hope they will be brief. I've struggled mightily in this area. I am still committed to the request that has been proposed by our workers, which was the $5,000 for everybody under 75. I am, though, also equally concerned about those who don't meet that threshold, who are struggling. Even though you may be making, and I've heard the firefighters and some others who are making that at that 90 or below, it's still a struggle. It's still a struggle, and I have not given up that we can't find a way to make that happen. However, I've not been in the majority vote on any of this and would not expect to get those needs met as I would like them to be, and was looking for points of compromise. And at the last meeting, we at least had a number that we know people were willing to give out, which was the $6.5 million. After that, Councilwoman Freeman and I had a long meeting with the city manager. I ended up having to leave that meeting to go to another meeting, saying, where can we pull monies from? Where can we find monies from? My first ask was, what about in participatory budgeting? There is $2 million there. My second ask was, what about in our CIP budget, where those are capital improvement? Is there a way to try to figure out how we slow down some projects or not in? My third was, we had agreed to expand the community safety department. How can we not expand that Also, look within your own shop, you know, within the city budgets for departments. Is there a way for department heads to go back and to try to decrease their budgets by 3 to 5% and see where those monies would land us as a total? Because I don't know that people will mind having it split as long as they got it, right? I am committed for the time remaining that I am mayor to keep pushing that conversation, that needs to be looked at, that there are ways, even though I left that conversation very frustrated because that was a no, we can't. And it's complex when you hear how those numbers are explained from different employees coming out of different budgets or funds and how it all comes together. But complexity shouldn't equate to impossibility. And it shouldn't be a no, it should be, let us see where we can go so that in the interim, folk can look internally to see where we can find extra money. And it may be that they won't get a bonus in a whole, but it can be done in part. But like I said, I haven't enjoyed the support of the majority and management to a certain degree. So I'm gonna put it out there and tell you that. That's where I'm gonna push. Today, I am willing to go with option 2 or option 3 because we know we got a majority. I think that we'll be willing to do that. I like option 3, though, because it does take into account the higher, the ones on the higher end, but there's a split. But I think there's a way to still, if we look within our own budgets, to make up the shortfall so that those on the upper end can get the 2,000 and the 2,500 and still somehow or another get that lower end all at 5,000. But I don't run the numbers. And I can only rely on the expertise of those who are in charge of that. But I do know from having run budgets that there is a way to relook at things, reallocate, and give it and make up that shortfall later. So I'll vote for today, but I will not give up on your ask.
Madam Mayor, I'll join you in option 3. I think it's fine. I think just pertaining to your comments, I think, you know, part of it is once we vote on the budget, we've set that budget ordinance in place, and I think that's why it's been so difficult to get there. But I just want to say I'll join you in option 3.
And I'm saying either one. I just want some monies to be divvied up today, and will hope that we can get a commitment, at least from some of the members of council, that you will not give up on what the total ask was.
Right, and that's me. I didn't explain that when I was speaking, but that's what I was talking about. Looking at, there was no like kind of outline for what going over the budget, right? So the mayor clearly said it maybe better than I can. And I'm going to join her in not giving up for the original acts. And I'm willing to vote on what we have to vote on today. But again, I'd like to hear from the staff, like which ones would be beneficial for them. Maybe that's just me, I don't know. But I am joining the mayor, and I know Deidreana Freeman. I don't know about my other colleagues because we're the ones who've had meetings, but I'm joining, which is, I maybe didn't articulate the way that the mayor did, but that's what I was saying. Can we find other money to go with the original acts? And she clearly said it very eloquently, and that's what I was trying to say. So I'm also going to join with her in not giving up.
Councilwoman Freeman.
And I would also join the mayor in that, and that's exactly what I was pushing at and saying, like, there's just knowing where the numbers are. I know it's a financial ask. In finishing the conversation, I will say that the city manager made it very clear that in this current budget, there is a push to save about $10 million, which is not, so the budget's been passed, but we're looking to save $10 million in this current budget. And in order to do any additional, we would have to save an additional $3 million. So that would be pushing us to $13 million. And so that would take all of the departments and then figuring out if there were any extra funds elsewhere to move us to that point. And I think that we can get there. And so I am committed to pushing for that $5,000 because I think it's important, especially critical for those under $90,000. And so I think option 3, like I said before, does get us closest to that. And I'm fine with moving forward. Option 3, I think, I guess I can listen for more, but I think we at least had 4 people say they would go with option 3. And I can move forward with a request to suspend the rules when you're ready.
There's 4 for 2 or 3. Madam Mayor? Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, colleagues. I think for me, option 2, I think gets us closest to the most equity, but I can certainly live with option 3 as well. I think if you make $75,001, you get $300 under the $5,000 bonus for folk under 75. And if you make $75,000, you get $5 grand, $1 over that, $300. I don't know how to explain that to people. I just don't know how to explain that to people. So, we'll have to keep pushing. In terms of supporting, listen, I support reparations and guaranteed income. I'd love to write a check for everybody, but I've learned a lot of things about the way a city works. It's kind of like, in many ways, the way we run our households, only a whole lot more money. And some of the decisions that we face in running our households, even though you might have money in your savings account, you got a whole bunch of stuff coming down the road. You could just empty your savings account and buy that car or buy the refrigerator at one fell swoop, or buy that, furniture suite. You could, and then the next week your roof falls in. So there are things that, that inform this decision. Part of our responsibility and promise to you is that we would take the time to study things and become knowledgeable about things so you won't have to. That's how a representative democracy works. So I support number 2, and I could live with number 3. And I'll say this finally. I've listened to so many impassioned and powerful speeches. I hope I get to vote for some of you to sit in these seats. I really do. I hope I get to pass out flyers and knock on doors for some of you, because we're not going to be in these seats forever. Thank God. We're not going to be in these seats forever. And I hope that by the time you get here, this job is still worth having. I hope this job pays enough so you don't have to be a CEO or independently wealthy or have a life configured in a way where you could do this job. I hope the job is worth having. I hope that when you get here, you won't have to make decisions of whether or not about childcare or whether you can put gas in your car. I hope this city honors your work enough that when you get in this seat, you'll want to stay in it and you'll be able to do it comfortably. That's my hope. So be careful, how we set things up now, because when it's your turn, when it's other people's turn, we want it to be worth having. That's my prayer and hope. And I've heard some candidates already, some folk in here, that I would be proud to support to sit in these seats. I hope the job is still worth having. I support number 2, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to try to go back to explain a little bit clearer why I was looking at option 3 with the hope that we could make up the shortfall. The requests of the city employees were for the 75,000. Below 75,000, you get $5 grand, and above was 500. So, and as I've tried to look at these numbers over the weeks, option 3, in my opinion, you would have, just looking at the numbers, you will have a little bit more equity across the line if we can make up that shortfall. Because if we choose option 3, you're then left with 3 categories of workers who have not gotten that 75 grand, which would be the 688 of folk, I believe in the 60 to 80, the 508 in the next category of the 434, which is the bulk. But the other two tiers would have gotten something, and maybe if you can find enough money, you may be able to enhance 150, but you will be left with, paying two of those categories an extra $2,500 each, and then one would be given $1,250. If in fact we were able to kind of, at some point, give them another bite at that bonus, you would be left with maybe three categories of folk who would have that additional money that you're looking for. Does that make sense? That's my rationale for looking at option 3, because and then that upper tier is not left totally out with just basic $500, if that makes sense. So that's just but I am perfectly willing to vote for either one today, and would ask somebody to offer a motion to suspend the rules. And then we'll take about a 2 or 3 minute break so we can and come back and we'll vote. Okay?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to suspend the rules so that we can move forward today.
Second.
All right. It has been motioned by Councilwoman Freeman that we suspend the rules. It's been seconded by Councilman Williams. All those in favor, if you would sign by stating aye. Aye. All those opposed have the same right. Hearing none, those rules are suspended, and we will come back. Let us give about 5 minutes to come back for everybody to digest where we are, and then we'll take a vote, and you all should in your pockets with the hope that we come back again.
Recording stopped.
All right, everybody, we are back, and our rules have been suspended. I do want to note for the record that, along with Councilwoman Johnson, I will exempt myself from that $1,000 for employees. And we are now ready to entertain a motion on our options here.
Before
Madam
we,
Mayor?
just so we, add the budget language and making sure that the ordinance reflects that we all would be exempted. And I think Councilmember Caballero was checking.
My advice was to ask the city attorney how we would phrase the ordinance language to exempt council from bonuses.
Madam Mayor, I'm not going to opine right this second, but I will work with staff to develop the appropriate language. Generally, it would be to exempt the elected members of the council, correct?
Yes, Madam Attorney, can we do it with the motion? Because I think our hope was to be able to pass the ordinance language today. Can we say it with the motion language and then it could get adapted, or no, we can't do that?
Sure, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
Yes,
So whoever's making the motion would just add that as in their language?
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So would it be appropriate to say, so a motion to adopt or
Option number,
a motion to adopt ordinance for option number 3 and to move to adopt the resolution for option 3 with the exemption for city council members?
I think that's close enough that we will refine that language for the final adopted ordinance. Can we?
Or whether it could even just be direction to staff to do that, yeah.
Sure.
I don't know what the,
Councilman Williams, followed by Councilwoman Jose Hyman. I think they have questions.
No, I was about to make the motion.
No. Okay, great. You have a question?
Before we go with the motion, I am going to also exempt myself, but I want to say that I'm doing that because I want you to get your money. But I really could use the $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, $9,000 because I've spent so much money trying to make sure that I knew I didn't do anything and to have counsel. So I want to put it on the record, I'm going to exempt myself, but I really could use all of their money for my money that I had to spend out. Thank you.
Councilman Williams?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, back to the actual matter at hand. I am going to make a motion that we go with option 3 with the exemption of elected officials on the council. I'd love a second.
Second.
All right, it has been moved by Councilman Williams, and it has been seconded by both Councilwoman Johnson and Councilwoman Freeman. I just want to note that for the record, that both of them said it at the same time, and that's a great thing. All those in favor, if you would sign by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed have the same right. Hearing none, we have a unanimous decision.
Congratulations.
Madam Mayor? Just in making sure to move forward, direction for staff to look at what it would look like to cover those 3 additional groupings for the additional funding to get them to 5,000.
Yes, I would ask that city staff look at those areas that I talked with the city manager about, as well as, any additional fundings that can be found within departments, and ask if they would come back to us with those numbers. I'd like to know those numbers prior to my last work session if possible, so that I will have some idea that it was on its road to getting done between now and the pay study. So my last, I think, work session is November 21st, something like that. So that if I don't get a chance to actually vote on it, I would like to at least know that I've seen the numbers and that it's possible. Anybody have any problem with that? Just go back and look. That's all I'm asking. Make a good faith effort to look for that extra money and give it to them at the appropriate time. All right, we